Rocking M Studios presents a Mead Steel education production. Meiosis, the Great Genetic Remix.
All right, let's get right into it. We're about to explore this amazing biological process that is, well, it's basically life's ultimate remix engine. It's the very reason that every single one of us, every person, every animal, every plant is a completely unique genetic masterpiece. It's called meiosis. No, really, just stop and think about that for a second. Of course you have traits from your family, right? But that specific mix that makes you you, it has never existed before and it will never ever exist again. And the whole secret to why that is, it all comes down to how your genetic instructions were put together in the first place. So to really get the magic of meiosis, we first need to put it side by side with its much more straightforward cousin, mitosis. Think of it like this. Your body has two basic needs. Sometimes it needs a perfect, exact copy of a cell, and other times it needs a creative remix. And this right here shows the difference perfectly. Over on the left, you've got mitosis. One cell just becomes two identical daughter cells. This is what your body uses for growth and repair, making new skin cells and things like that. But then on the right, we've got the star of our show, meiosis. One cell goes through 2 rounds of division to create 4 cells. And here's the kicker. They are all genetically different from each other. Okay, so let's break that down. Mitosis is basically a photocopier. It makes identical body cells. The fancy term is somatic cells with a full set of 46 chromosomes. We call that diploid or 2N. Meiosis, though, that's the remix artist. Its only job is to make sex cells, or gametes, so sperm and eggs. It takes 2 divisions to get it done, and what you end up with are 4 genetically different cells, each with only half the chromosomes, just 23. And we call that haploid, or N. So the big question is, how on earth does meiosis create all this variety? Well, it starts with our first major mechanism. I want you to imagine your parents' DNA as 2 separate decks of cards. The very first thing meiosis does is shuffle those decks together in a very interesting way. See, inside your cells, you have 23 pairs of these things called homologous chromosomes. In each pair, one chromosome came from your mom and the other one came from your dad. Now, they carried the same genes, like, say, the gene for eye color, but they might carry different versions of that gene, different alleles. So maybe you got a blue eyes allele from one parent and a brown eyes one from the other. In the first phase of meiosis, these pairs find each other and buddy up, forming the structure called a tetrad. And this is where the real magic kicks in. While they're all paired up like this, the chromosomes actually get tangled. They literally break off little pieces of themselves and swap them with their partner. This physical exchange of DNA is called crossing over. And just look at the result. You started with one chromosome that was pure dad and one that was pure mom. But after crossing over, you end up with 2 completely new chromosomes that are a patchwork, a mosaic of both of them. You've literally created brand new combinations of genes on a single chromosome before the cell has even finished its first division. This is layer 1 of the great genetic remix. But, the shuffling does not stop there. Not even close. If crossing over is all about mixing up the genes on a chromosome, this next step is about mixing up the chromosomes themselves. So, welcome to what I like to call the Great Chromosome Lottery. Okay, so after all that gene swapping, all 23 of those chromosome pairs line up right down the middle of the cell, getting ready to be pulled apart. But here's the crucial part. The way they line up is completely and totally random. For any given pair, the chromosome from your mom could be on the left or it could be on the right. And the way one pair lines up has absolutely 0 effect on how any of the others do. It's a total free-for-all. This is called independent assortment. So what does that randomness actually mean for variety? Well, for us humans, with our 23 pairs of chromosomes, the number of possible combinations is 2 to the power of 23. That comes out to over 8 million different combinations of chromosomes that can end up in a single sperm or egg cell. And get this, that's from one person. And it's before you even factor in all the new variety we already created with crossing over. It's just staggering. Now, you can imagine this whole process is an incredibly complex and precise little dance of molecules. And, sometimes, very rarely, a step gets missed. So what happens when this finely tuned system makes an error?
Well, that's called non-disjunction. It's when a pair of chromosomes just fails to separate the way it's supposed to during a division. As you can see here, you end up with gametes, sperm or egg cells, that have either an extra chromosome they shouldn't, or they're missing one entirely. It really just goes to show how incredibly precise and important this whole process is for creating healthy offspring.
Okay, so we've remixed the genes on the chromosomes with crossing over. We've shuffled the chromosomes themselves with independent assortment. Now it's time for the grand finale, creating a totally new, one-of-a-kind person. And this is where it all comes together, fertilization. One of over 8 million possible sperm from the father fuses with one of over 8 million possible eggs from the mother. Each one of those is already a completely unique genetic package. When they combine, they create a single cell called a zygote with a full set of 46 chromosomes, a combination that has literally never existed before in the history of the universe. And that one cell then uses mitosis, our photocopier, to divide over and over and grow into, well, you. So let's just quickly recap the big ideas here. The incredible genetic variation we see all around us comes from a few key places. We talked a lot about crossing over, which shuffles the genes. Then there's independent assortment, which shuffles the whole chromosomes. And random fertilization, which combines two unique hands into one winning combination. Of course, random mutations and errors like non-disjunction also add to the mix, though not always for the better. When you really step back and think about it, it's breathtaking. Every living thing that reproduces this way is a constant, ongoing experiment. This endless shuffling and reshuffling of genes is what allows life to adapt and evolve over time. It truly is an elegant, microscopic dance. And that brings us right back to where we started. You take the 8 million or so possibilities from your father, multiply them by the 8 million from your mother, you get 64 trillion possible genetic combinations for any single child. And that number doesn't even begin to account for the almost infinite variety created by crossing over. So the next time you look in the mirror, just remember the unbelievable cosmic lottery you won just to be here, to be exactly, uniquely you. What does that truly mean?